Capricorn Rising, Jupiter's entered Leo. That's your 8th house from July 2026 to July 2027. I'm Sook Boy. You're awesome. Let's talk about it. The way I see it, this particular transit is about your ego, your heart, and aligning your ego strength with what you're actually in love with, what you're actually passionate about, what fills your cup. Jupiter is all about wisdom. Wisdom gains momentum very slowly. We can only generate wisdom after mistakes and after errors in our life, let's say. So this transit is definitely going to be about your heart's wisdom. In a nutshell, the 8th house governs over what you've become attached to in terms of intimacy, the consequences of prior agreements or relationships you have. It's your relationship with debt and shared assets and taxes. Now, it rules the occult, but the occult is a bit vague. Basically, what's been kept from you. Therefore, it can govern over betrayal. It also governs over how much trust you have for another entity, circumstance, or situation. How much power you have over another person, situation, circumstance, relationship, and vice versa. Sometimes the occult, or what's been hidden, is actually secrets that we've voluntarily kept from other people. Sometimes that can be rather taboo aspects of our sexuality or behaviors that we don't want others to know about, and vice versa, especially if you're entangled with another person. It can represent the crisis in our lives, and crisis will ultimately generate some kind of transformation in you. So in some ways, it's a rite of passage or even a dark night of the soul. It's a fairly vulnerable area of the chart, and it asks you to excavate the true depth of your psychology and the person you have become entangled with, or circumstance or situation. What have you become dependent on, and what have they become dependent on you about? Exactly. Sometimes it can be symbolic of the endings of things, death and rebirth, and the phoenix rising from the ashes. In this regard, it also represents what you've inherited or what you will inherit. Now, this can be money, but this can also be early childhood patterns or emotional patterns, or what you were left with after a very committed, intimate relationship. Again, romantic, business, platonic, or otherwise. It doesn't have to be romantic. It could be your relationship with money. It could be your relationship with an asset. It could be your relationship with a business or a business partner. Having Leo in the 8th house is kind of counterintuitive. It's ruled by the sun, and it's about shedding light, spotlighting you in some way, shape, or form. And in this area of the life, you might not be that comfortable with sharing these aspects of your temperament, let's say. It's confident, it's optimistic. Sometimes it can be very performative. Sometimes it's an aspect of ourselves that actually craves validation and recognition from others. Leo is a fixed sign, and so stereotypically that means it can be rather stubborn. Sometimes it can get on its high horse and be kind of arrogant, especially if it hasn't been validated for whatever it finds important or puts value into. Now, when it gets on its high horse, Leo can become rather arrogant. And because this is in the 8th house, this is something you might not consciously identify with. Or when it comes to you being pompous or arrogant, maybe that's something you keep hidden. You keep it in the inside mind and you don't actually broadcast or show that to anyone else. Until, of course, they really get to know you. And also the reverse is true. Maybe you got into a novel, friendly relationship, but once you got to know them better, you figured out what they were really like, that they were very arrogant and stubborn and self-centered. Now, Jupiter is the planet of truth and meaning and narrative. It's trying to find the meaning of something. It's less about luck, but more being prepared for an opportunity so one can be lucky. More than anything, though, Jupiter really wants to teach you something. So while Jupiter is moving through this area of the chart, it really wants to give you some knowledge about yourself. What are your taboos? What have you become addicted to, in the sense of, have you become more addicted to your attachments or your awareness of your attachments? Now, the 8th house is opposite the 2nd house, and these are money houses. The 2nd house is your Aquarius house, which is basically your access to independent resources, material possessions, how you support yourself, your livelihood. What are your resources? And the 8th house is everything about what are our resources or what are their resources. So over the next year, you might learn more about your relationship with money, your relationship with intimacy, and a deeper connection, psychological and sexual connections between people. Jupiter expands anything it touches, so you may be overcommitted with debts, and it's something that you really need to pay a lot of attention to, and use this Leo bravery and sovereignty and independence to actually tackle that debt, tackle that tax, tackle paying down off that asset, for example. Now, Jupiter actually rules two signs, your third house of Pisces and your 12th house of Sagittarius. What does that mean? Basically, because Jupiter is now in Leo, it's going to showcase or broadcast Leo themes in the areas of the chart that Jupiter rules. As I said, this 12th house of Sagittarius and this third house of Pisces. The Pisces third house is around mindset, the settings of your mind, what you've normalized when it comes to talking to yourself, for example, the ideas you generate in your mind and how you transact those ideas with language, speech, writing, emails, texts, media, with other people. The third house governs your relationship with your siblings, extended family members, and in-laws, also your neighbors in your neighborhood, the local community, the local pub, the local coffee shop. I'm not sure, you tell me. Even you walking through the park, anything that's normalized in your everyday life that somehow normalizes the way you think is what this third house represents. Now, when it's occupied by Pisces, this is actually a really creative energetic, and it actually allows you to explore and expand your mind. Now, Capricorn get this stereotype of being really rigid, but it's not really true. In your mind, there is this creative facility. And sometimes it can have a really addictive personality. Sometimes it has a very escapist personality, but sometimes it's ultimately very creative and very compassionate, especially with the way you want to talk to people and the way you want to transact your ideas with others. Jupiter pushing Leo themes in this area of the chart will ask you to take the initiative, to take the lead, start the conversation, maybe start the forgiving process, maybe resolving or dissolving old conflicts and actually introducing some more compassion or unconditional love. So your love ultimately isn't conditional anymore. Also, the reverse can be true. Your relationships with siblings, your relationship with your in-laws and your community, you might feel like things flow a lot more confidently when it comes to the way you're talking and engaging with other people in that local area and also in your mind settings. A Pisces third house generally indicates a very open mind and an ability to be very creative with your problem solving. So having Leo themes in this third house can also indicate that you're going to have a lot more optimism and enthusiasm with your creative ego strength. The third house is also about how we learn, and Pisces is very much metaphysical. It's not tangible. It's not about concrete reality. That's more about the opposite side of the chart, your ninth house, Virgo. So when we're learning things, and there's a Pisces theme here, and there's a bit of Leo peppered in there because the Jupiter is in the Leo, then it's about taking the initiative, leading by example, and opening your mind and learning how you can open your mind more, how you can actually see other people's perspectives and be compassionate to their situation or circumstances. The 12th house Sag is a lot more complicated. That's everything that is unknown, not just hidden. It's like you don't even know about it. This can be like hidden enemies, hidden addictions, hidden attachments, your more unconscious impulses. You know, when you get really drunk one night and you act out in some kind of absurd behavior. The 12th house is the thing that's like, whoa, you were really out of character then. It's something that emerges from us because it's everything about ourselves and society and the universe that we don't actually know. It's representative of the unknown. Now, the 12th house and the 6th house are on the health axis, and the 12th house in particular speaks to your mental health, your mental well-being. Again, Jupiter expands anything it touches, so you might be influenced or motivated to actually seek out therapy or understand more about your more deeper unconscious impulses. It can also speak to expanding all the invisible work that you do behind the scenes that no one knows about. This is almost incubational. What will you be doing in the background, kind of growing on your own in private or isolation? Jupiter will be moving through Leo for the year, and in particular, throughout this first month of July, there are a lot of complicated aspects. So think of this as an overview. I'm going to circle back around to when we get powerful aspects to this Jupiter moving through your 8th house. Just saying. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope that helps. Okay, bye.